All right, we made it to question number 9. Question number 9, they're asking you to graph a general form equation of a circle. And what we've seen from previous questions is when you have general form, you really just need to know two things. You need to know what the center is, and you need to know what the radius is. So those two things, we find the center, we find the radius, we can graph the circle. All right, here's our equation. It's in order. We've got the x terms first, y terms second, and the constant is over on the right side. That means this is h, this is k, and remember, this is not r, this is r squared. If you ever write the radius is equal to this number, trust me, you are going to get the question wrong. So let's take a look about h and k. If the number here is positive, we know that that means the sign has to flip, or the sign is going to flip every time. That means h is -3 and k is +4. I've explained why those signs are opposite in previous videos, so hopefully if you're having trouble with this unit, you've watched those videos. Okay, now r squared is equal to 2.25. That means r, let's go ahead and replace that. That means r is equal to the square root. I'm going to make that, we'll leave it green. R is equal to the square root of 2.25. If you want to make a little note up here that based on what you just wrote here, r squared is equal to 2.25. In order to find r, you square root both sides. So the exact answer is the square root of 2.25, but I think most of you, including me, are going to have difficulty graphing a radius of square root of 2.25. I need to change that to a decimal answer. So let's do that. Square root of 2.25. So square root of 2.25, and that's going to be, exactly 1.5. That makes it easy, so 1.5 units. So let's go ahead and graph this. We've got all the information we need. The center is at -1, 2, 3, +1, 2, 3, 4. There's our center. And our radius is 1.5. We're just going to estimate this. So we're going to move 1 unit and then move half a unit. So we'll put our point somewhere, let's see, let's make that light blue. Put our point right there at 1.5. We're going to go 1.5 down, 1.5 to the right, and 1.5 up. And then when you're sketching your circle, I don't ask for perfect, but it should look better than this. So you can actually try to make a curve that looks like a circle. So I'm going to go around like this, come around here, and not perfect, but at least it looks somewhat like a circle. There is your graph of the equation. All right, let's take a look at the next one. We got a problem with this one, class, because the terms are not in the correct order. So you're going to have to rewrite this equation. That means that this whole binomial, this y plus 2 squared, that's got to move to this side, and the -9 is going to have to move over to this side. And we've learned in this class that when any term gets moved from one side of the equal sign to the other, you're going to be writing the opposite sign. So this is going to be x squared is equal to, not equal to, x squared, we're going to put plus y plus 2 squared, because this term is being moved to the other side. It started off as a negative binomial. Now it's going to be a positive binomial. And now we're going to move the -9 to the right side. That's going to change to the opposite sign and make it +9. All right, so let's go ahead and find our center. Our center here. Well, there is no number inside the parentheses that's being added or subtracted from the x value. That means our x value of our center is 0, and our y value is our k value. which is equal to -2. And now let's go through this again. Some of you are going to want to write equal 9, and I've also seen some people write equal 81. I'm going to tell you the way that you don't make this mistake is you actually identify this is r squared. That means if r squared equals 9, then r is equal to the square root of 9, which is equal to 3. So we've got a perfect square there. We've got a radius of 3 units. Okay, so we've got all the information that we need. So I'm not going to graph this on the video. I'm going to have you guys go ahead and graph it. You're going to go ahead and put your center at 0, -2. It's going to be right down here if you're watching my cursor. And then you're going to count 3 units left, up, right, and down, and connect that and form a circle, and that will be your graph of your circle. All right, let's do one more question here. Question number 10. Actually, you know what? Yeah, I'm going to skip that graph. You guys can do that on your own. All right. Question number 10. Write the equation of a circle with a center at -3, 0, and a point on the circle at 4, 2. All right, so we've got a center. I've got a graph, which means I'm probably going to be able to use Pythagorean theorem for this, because I'm going to have to find the center of the circle and the radius. Well, they already gave me the center. This is -3, 0. There's my center. I'm going to label that. And then my point on the circle is at +1, 2, 3, 4. +2. I'm going to label that as P. That's a point on the circle. If I've got the center and a point on the circle, that means the distance from the center to the point on the circle is my radius. And because I can use this graph, I can go ahead and use Pythagorean theorem to find the radius. I'm going to go ahead and turn this into a right triangle. This side is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 units long. This side is 2 units long. Let's go ahead and write Pythagorean theorem. A squared plus b squared equals c squared. I'll pick the 7 as my first leg. The 2 is my second leg. And then I know that the hypotenuse, which is my c value, is going to be my radius. This is 49 plus 4 equals r squared. That means 53 equals r squared. And if r squared is 53, then r is equal to the square root of 53. And I'm going to have to convert that to a decimal. The square root of 53, let's see what that is approximately 7.28. Well, I'm going to round to 1 decimal. The 8 means I'm going to bump that 2 up to 3. So approximately 7.3 units. So there's my radius. And then I already know what my center is. Let's go ahead and write that down. My center is at -3, 0. Make sure you read the question carefully so you don't pick this point, the 4, 2. That's a point on the circle. The center is at -3, 0. And now I can go ahead and write my equation. I'm going to go ahead and tell you this equation, so if you're paying attention on the video, you can actually write this one down. Actually, I'll go ahead and write this one down so you guys have this answer. It is going to be x plus 3 squared, then plus y squared, and then that is equal to, and then our radius is 7.3. Now take a look at this. This is interesting. Our radius is 7.3. We're looking for the equation of the circle, but remember, for the equation of a circle in standard form, this is actually r squared. This is r squared. Well, r squared is actually 53. So you're not going to write 7.3 here because that would be putting radius here. So in this case, r squared is actually going to be 53. So this is the part I'm going to skip. I want you to write 53 in this spot right here. 53. And then let's put an arrow right here to remind you that that number right there is r squared. And I'll put a box around here so you guys can see. This actually makes my problem a little bit easier. In fact, I actually didn't need to find out the value of r. At that case, I had r squared already. I didn't need to actually square root it. So this will be x plus 3 squared plus y squared equals 53. Let's put a little circle here just to remind you that you should be writing 53 in this spot right here. All right. Letter B. Let's learn from that mistake on this one. Let's see if we end up with r squared. If we do, we don't have to worry about square rooting it again. Okay, so letter B, here's our issue, is it doesn't give us a graph. That means we're going to have to use the distance formula. So that means we've got a center of 0, negative 5. Let's write that right now. I've got a center of 0, comma, negative 5. That's my h value and my k value. But now I'm going to find the distance between those. Here's my point on the circle. That's 1, comma, negative 3. And we know that this, we're going to label these x sub 1, y sub 1, x sub 2, y sub 2, because we know that the distance between the center of a circle and a point on the circle, that's our radius. So let's figure out what the distance is. The distance formula is equal to the square root of x sub 2 minus x sub 1 squared plus y sub 2 minus y sub 1 squared. All right, let's plug our values in. X sub 2 is 1. Remember, the minus sign is part of the equation. X sub 1 is 0. Y sub 2 is negative 3. Minus is part of our equation. And then our y sub 1 is negative 5. You can see we've got a subtracting a negative, which let's go ahead and take care of that right now. That means we are actually going to add the 5. So let's do the next line. We've got the square root of 1 squared plus negative 3 plus 5 is positive 2. That's equal to the square root of 1 squared is 1, 2 squared is 4. So we've got the square root of 5. And let's go ahead and leave that the way it is. Now I'm going to change something here to let you guys see that this is actually, the distance is now going to be our radius. So now in this case, unlike Pythagorean theorem, we did end up with r. That means to write our equation, we're going to have to change that to r squared. And I can do that right here. If you want to just go ahead and write this at the end. That means r squared is equal to the square root of 5 squared, which is just equal to 5, because the square root cancels the square. Alright, so now we're going to go ahead and write our final equation. So our final equation is going to use the center. We've got h is equal to 0. That means we don't have to write parentheses. This is just going to be x squared plus y plus 5, because we're using the opposite sign of k, equals, and then r squared is equal to 5. So there's our final solution. I'm going to go ahead and put that in the box so you guys can clearly see that. Alright, so there is question number 10.